As more of our jobs drift into abstract knowledge work, the old satisfaction of skill and craft are harder to find within the workplace. Meanwhile, much of our free time is being siphoned away by digital distractions that leave us overstimulated and unfulfilled. Paradoxically, it's the activities that we once dismissed as just for fun that now carry the weight of meaning in our lives. Our hobbies have become one of the last frontiers where we can reclaim attention, cultivate skill, and feel the dignity of autonomy. They are no longer optional diversions. Increasingly, they are where self-actualization happens. Hi, I'm Sam Mass. I'm a writer and filmmaker. And in this video, we're going to be talking about how hobbies are more than leisure or escape, how they're deeply tied to meaning, autonomy, and living a fulfilling life. To make the case, I'll draw on 4 books that reshaped how I think about hobbies: Deschooling Society, which showed me how to choose good transformational hobbies; Flow, which taught me the value of sticking with hobbies for long periods of time; Digital Minimalism, which showed me how to make space for these hobbies; and Shop Class as Soulcraft, which showed me why hobbies are becoming so important in the modern day. Together, these books outline a philosophy of hobbies, why they matter, how to choose them, and how they can transform your life. Hey, real quick before we dive in, I just want to mention that this is part 1 in a series we're calling Attention by Design. It's a series exploring practical ways to take back your attention and use it with purpose. Later this month, I'll be dropping part 2, which is all about how to overcome YouTube addiction. So if you want to catch that when it comes out, make sure you're subscribed. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the video. When I first moved to Salt Lake City, I wanted to build a small community, so I started hosting these Wednesday night happy hours. I'd invite a few people over, we'd share drinks, and I always wanted to have something fresh out of the oven to share with them. The problem was I had no confidence in baking at the time. And that's where today's sponsor, Craftsy, comes in. Craftsy is your online resource for all things creative, with over 2,000 classes in baking, cake decorating, cooking, quilting, and more. I took All About Bread with Gemma Stafford, and it completely changed how I thought about baking. Before, I was really intimidated by the whole process, but she breaks down each step clearly, the mixing and kneading and proofing, and it made it all feel really simple. That foundation gave me the confidence to keep branching out and trying new things in the kitchen. But it all started on Craftsy. And the best part is, unlike other platforms where it's really easy to get distracted by other kinds of videos, Craftsy is completely dedicated to building creative skills. And right now, the first 1,000 of you who click the link in the description can get Craftsy Premium for a full year for just $1.49. Please note the offer is valid for new members only. For me, Craftsy turned those happy hours into something that I could be proud of and something I really enjoyed doing. Most learning is not the result of instruction. It is rather the result of unhampered participation in a meaningful setting. Most people learn best by being with it, yet school makes them identify their personal cognitive growth with elaborate planning and manipulation. If you came to this video hoping for a list of the best hobbies to start, I'll save you the trouble. I can't answer that for you. Good transformational hobbies are self-curated. They start with your own curiosity, your own needs, and your own impulses. They're not something that can be handed to you by somebody else. In Deschooling Society, Ivan Illich argues that institutions dictate how we learn and what we value, often in ways that don't fit the communities they're applied to or the individuals within them. He shows us what happens when a wealthy country's education system is transplanted onto a developing nation's. It doesn't fit, it doesn't belong, and it often creates more dysfunction than growth. But it happens over and over again because we go in with this unquestioned assumption that education is always good, and specifically our idea of education, without looking at what those local communities might need specifically. And the same thing happens in our own lives. We impose other people's ambitions onto ourselves, and it usually creates more dysfunction than growth. That's why there's no universal list of best hobbies. You might hear somebody say that jiu-jitsu is the ultimate hobby, and it might be for them. But the closest gym to you might be an hour away, or the people there might be cold and unwelcoming. If that's the case, it doesn't matter how good jiu-jitsu is on paper. If it's not something that you're going to stick with, it's not going to work for you. You may remember the term unfolding, which we talked about in the video How to Journal Like the Martian. It's a concept that we borrowed from the writer Henrik Carlson. It's a design principle that basically states that a design is good if the form fits the context. For example, a glove is well designed if it fits the hand it was designed for. And the same principle applies to hobbies. A hobby isn't good because it's productive, or it's healthy, or it signals high value. A hobby is good because it fits your life. That means you don't start with someone else's vision, and you're not worried about what your hobby says about you as a person. You're just trying things, noticing what clicks, and doing more of that. But this is actually a lot harder than it sounds in practice because people are highly symbolic, and you will apply meaning to your choices, and other people will as well. For example, I practice Muay Thai. People assume it's this violent, hyper-disciplined sport where everybody takes everything super seriously. But for me, I go to the gym because it's very playful and fun and expressive. It makes me feel like a kid again. But I don't blame people for those assumptions. I had the same ones when I first started, and none of them really appealed to me. I didn't think the sport was going to be for me at all. The only reason I ended up going in the first place was because my dad wanted to try out a gym when I was 16. And at the time, we weren't spending much time together, so it seemed like a great way for us to reconnect. So I went with him, not because of the discipline or what I thought the sport would do for me, just to spend time with my dad. And I stuck with it for over 14 years now. But the only reason I went in the first place was to spend time with my dad. But that's the point. The best hobby is the one that fits your life. It's circumstantial. It's personal. You might take up cooking as a way to facilitate having these interesting conversations by hosting people at your house. You might get into woodworking as a way to connect with your grandfather, or you might take up running as a way to spend time with your partner. At first, the value isn't in the activity itself. It's in the context that surrounds it. And that's the part that most people forget when they talk about the benefits of a hobby. They're usually talking about the intrinsic benefits, but those actually take a lot of time to reach. When people talk about the joy they get from running, or the clarity they feel while writing, or the focus they find in martial arts, they're describing something that shows up only after months or years of practice. That's why finding a hobby that fits your life matters so much. The fit gives you momentum. The external benefits of connection and convenience and accountability keep you going long enough to reach the intrinsic benefits that everyone is talking about. The external benefits are the bridge into flow. Most enjoyable activities are not natural. They demand an effort that initially one is reluctant to make. But once the interaction starts to provide feedback to the person's skills, it usually begins to be intrinsically rewarding. Once you stay with a hobby past the initial stages, something begins to shift. What you once did for external reasons starts producing its own intrinsic rewards. The activity itself becomes satisfying, and that's usually because of something called flow. Flow is the state you enter when challenge and skill align just beyond your current level. The task is hard enough to demand full focus, but not so hard that it's impossible. It's in that balance that self-conscious usually drops away. It's also a flow where you lose track of time. You're not doing it for any external reward. You're doing it because the activity itself is worthwhile. Now, what you find flow in is going to be different for everybody. But I've found that I'm personally drawn to activities with quick feedback loops. It's the immediacy that helps me reach flow faster. So in Muay Thai, for example, if my attention slips, I'm literally punched back into reality. When I'm out on my bike, cycling through traffic, if I make one little mistake, it can be really dangerous. But even with something like cooking, where the stakes don't seem that high, if I forget to do something, I'll mess up an entire dish and waste a lot of time. Basically, if nothing's at stake, then my mind will drift. But with just enough pressure, I'll lock in and focus. For other people, those stakes might feel overwhelming. They may find flow in slower crafts like woodworking, painting, gardening, or drawing. The thing to remember is that the flow state can't be reached immediately. When you first start an activity, you won't drop into flow right away, and it won't happen every time either. But if you stay with something, it's the flow that often becomes the most rewarding thing about a hobby. And anyone who's experienced it knows this. It's one of the things that makes life worth living. And in a world designed to hijack our attention, I think it's more important than ever to find places where our attention is fully given to something else. Declaring freedom from your smartphone is probably the most serious step you can take toward embracing the attention resistance. This follows because smartphones are the preferred Trojan horse of the digital attention economy. There's a lot of good stuff in the book Digital Minimalism, but the idea that I want to focus on is this. Your leisure time should be intentional. You don't just stumble into it. Wanting to do something like try out a new hobby isn't enough. You actually create the time and the space to do it. Newport argues that we should treat leisure like any other serious commitment. Just as we schedule meetings and deadlines, we should also schedule time for our hobbies. And he recommends that we do this in two ways. We make a seasonal plan for activities that we want to try over the next few months, and then we make a weekly plan, where each week we plan and commit to what we're going to do that week. That means scheduling things on the calendar, making plans with other people, forming commitments. And I found this to be really useful in my own life. And it helps too to think about it in terms of seasons, because oftentimes hobbies change with the seasons. I don't like cycling in the winter, so I don't do it. But If I don't replace that time that I was spending out cycling on the weekend, well, then I might just drift into low quality leisure activities like scrolling or mindlessly watching something on Netflix. So it's good to think in advance what you're going to want to do for the next few months. And then having the weekly plans, I find that it works best when I commit to them in advance. When I tell people, oh, yeah, I'll be at class on Tuesday and Thursday, or yeah, I'll be there on Sunday. That helps, it makes it easier to show up, because oftentimes, no matter how much I want to pursue an activity, when the time comes to do it and it's after work and it's getting late, I usually don't really want to go and do it. So having that commitment already in place forces me to show up. And then I would say 100% of the time I feel better for having gone than if I didn't. The other thing that's mentioned in the book that I find useful is scheduling time for low quality leisure activities. So the time you'd spend mindlessly scrolling or watching Netflix. I feel like a lot of times on the internet, people feel like they won't have time to pursue their hobbies if they're also still on social media. And while it's great to want to get off social media, I don't think that's true. It's not an either or. You can make time for both. It's just important that you're intentional about it. So, in the same way that you'd schedule and commit to a hobby, you can also schedule time to watch Netflix or scroll on your phone. That way, it doesn't become your default setting. Instead of finishing work and immediately getting on your phone and scrolling, you know that, oh, I'm going to go to Muay Thai, and then after Muay Thai class, I could scroll on my phone because I've already thought through that plan. Those two things in conjunction make it really easy to protect the time and the space to pursue new and interesting hobbies. The satisfactions of manifesting oneself concretely in the world through manual competence have been known to make a man quiet and easy. When I first read Shop Class as Soulcraft, it hit me really hard. Crawford makes the case that modern work has drifted away from tangible skills and shows how hollow that experience can be. For a lot of us, our skill in our job is abstract. Our success depends less on real competence than on the power of perception. Craft, on the other hand, offers something different. When you're fixing an engine or building a table, reality pushes back. The work either holds up or it doesn't. There's no talking your way out of it. And there's an honesty and a dignity in that. If you're good at it, then everyone knows you're good at it. There's no faking it. And at the time, it made my work feel really hollow. I was working in corporate sales, and I thought, wow, this is a terrible existence. I should quit and do something else. So I took Crawford's lessons literally. I quit my job. I started running a Muay Thai gym, and I started looking into going to trade school. But what I found was the reality was different than my romantic fantasy. It sounded really cool to leave my job and pursue running a Muay Thai gym. But in fact, it made my life worse. I felt more tired and less free than I did when I had an actual job and was pursuing Muay Thai as a hobby. And that's the real lesson that I got out of this book, even though Crawford wouldn't say this, is that I don't need my job to carry the weight of meaning for my entire life. For me, it actually works better if I separate the two. Work is the place where I earn money as efficiently as possible. And hobbies become the place where I find the greater meaning for my life, where I build community and practice skill. So hobbies gave me the satisfactions that I felt like I was missing from my job. And I think it can do the same for anyone that feels like their work isn't enough, but doesn't want to uproot their life to find a new career. It's a lot harder than it sounds. And the truth is, meaning doesn't have to come from your job title. And this realization was so freeing because it also saved me from trying to wring meaning out of my job, a task that seems like it's getting harder and harder in today's world. I just started treating finding meaning and work as two separate problems. And the best part is, it actually helped me do better in both realms. By not professionalizing my hobbies, it made it easier to enjoy them. And by having that extra meaning outside of work, it made it easier to go into work and be happy and not expect it to carry the weight of meaning for my entire life. So, in other words, hobbies became the place where I found meaning, and that made it easier to do work. The thread that runs through all this is really simple. Meaning often won't be handed to us through a job title or a school or an algorithm. It's something that we create for ourselves in our free time. And from the outside, a hobby can look small, cooking for friends, going for an evening bike ride. But it's inside those moments that we get a lot of value for our lives. It's where we find focus and connection with the world. And that's why hobbies matter, not because they make us productive or signal who we are as people, but because they give us a chance to just be present and steady and alive in the activities that we're doing. Anyway, thank you for watching. Once a month, I'm going to be posting a members only video, which is basically like a journal entry for the channel. I'll be going over all of the numbers, what's working, what's not, and we'll also talk about how much the channel is earning and how every dollar is being reinvested into making the content better. Membership is only $6 a month. It's about the price of a coffee these days. And if you're curious about the process of growing a YouTube channel, I think you'll really enjoy it. Anyway, thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you in the next video.